clone stamp tool. It's taking a clone by holding the Alt key or the Option key down, turning it into crosshairs, doing a left click, and now I can start cloning. Of course, I can change the size of my cursor, make it bigger and smaller through which keyboard shortcut, do you know? The square bracket tool. The square bracket open makes it smaller. The square bracket close makes it bigger. So I can make a bigger clone or a smaller clone. Let's apply that to this shadow. See the shadow that's happening here? That was Talana's shadow. We don't need that anymore. But this time I want to use a different tool. I want to use this one called the Spot Healing Brush. Notice these days when you hover over one of our tools, it gives you a little preview of what the tool does. I would have loved a real life spot healing brush this morning, because when I had breakfast, no, only kidding. But wouldn't it be great just to get rid? So what we can do now is with the Spot Healing Brush, I'm going to make my cursor a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to paint over that shadow. And it uses the same technology as the Content Aware Fill to fill that with some extra sand. And now when I zoom out, the shadow's gone, the splash is gone. I've got a bit of an imperfection here, so I'm going to grab my clone stamp tool again, make it a little bit bigger, do a clone and just stamp over that to make that look a little bit more realistic. Now I've got a slight issue up here where the landscape doesn't quite look right, so I'm thinking I might use my Spot Healing Brush and just go over that. That's not quite right, is it? So I won't. Again, you just choose the tool you think is going to work best. It's going to clone some of the water and then go over that with the water. And now when I zoom out, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I've got a beautiful landscape, bratty teenagers there, and the water's looking good, splashed, no shadow, all because of the different tools in Photoshop. Is that helpful? Yeah. So one of the things I showed you at the very start of this session yesterday was how to export in for web, save for web, so you make it a low-res file. But if I wanted to export it as a high-res, well, as high-res as I possibly can, because it's a massive high-res file anyway, I would recommend just going File, Export, and quick export as PNG, and that would give you as a resolution as you probably want for a video or for printing. Of course, if I'm going to put it online, I would go Export, Save for Web, and go through the formula that I showed you yesterday. All right, we've got 30 minutes before we have our first morning break, and I'm thinking that some of you are ready for an extra Photoshop challenge. Are we ready to be stretched with Photoshop? Can I show you something that's even more complicated? Yeah? Are you up for it? Yes. You sure? Sure. Okay. Who's ever used the Perspective Warp tool? Yeah? A couple of you? Well, not many. All right, so I'm going to show you the Perspective Warp tool because it is so much fun. What we need to do is to download 2 images from that Google Drive. If you can download these 2 images here, it's Per Warp 1 and Photoshop CC 2015. If you can find both of those images and download both of them and then open both up in Photoshop. So this one and this one in Photoshop. You'll notice once you've done that, you'll have 3 tabs at the top. One tab is Talana and Mia, one is Photoshop CC 2015, and one is Per Warp 1. Check the person next to you, make sure they're okay, make sure they've got both these images opened up in Adobe. do is to get this screen onto the laptop screen. And you can expect the total. So if you know what to do, go ahead and do it. If you're not sure, I'm going to do it step by step, and we'll see how we can compare. First thing I want to do is I want to create out the border of this Photoshop splash screen. So I'm going to activate the crop tool and just very quickly crop the bottom, crop the side, and the top is going to be a little bit harder to crop. So I want to show you another technique. I'm going to finish that crop by clicking enter, and I'm going to zoom right in onto where the crop handle should appear at the top once I've zoomed right in into pixel mode. Then I'm going to reactivate the cropping tool, and now that I've got that cropping handle, I can crop pixel by pixel. A really exact crop. So that's just zooming into where the handle is and then moving the handle down. Don't worry too much if you haven't been able to do that. Doesn't really matter. It's just to get a nice, perfect crop. All right, so I want to select the whole image. What's the shortcut to select all? Control A, good. A or Command A on a Mac. So I'm going to go Command A, and you can see instantly the marks appear all around that you've cropped out. Now I want to copy that image. Shortcut. And now I want to go to my per one image, and I want to paste it on top of that. Shortcut. I've copied, I've pasted, and just pasting, I've created a second layer. I've got layer one layer and my background layer. If you use the Move tool, you can actually physically see the two layers. Now what I want to do first is I actually want to scale this a little bit smaller. And what the shortcut is to go to the free transform tool. Control T, good, or Command T on a Mac. So if I go Command T, now in the free transform tool. If you're working with CC 2019, you don't need to hold the Shift key to keep perspective right. If you're working with 2018, you do need to hold the Shift key. So I'm going to not hold the Shift key and I get a perfect resolution. But if I hold the Shift key, it's the opposite. So that's been changed in the last 12 months. So I'm going to just make it a bit smaller and then bring it over the top of the screen. Then click Enter. All right, now that I've done that, I'm going to activate a tool up here called Edit and Perspective. Probably get a little tutorial up here. Here's step 1 of 2. I'm just going to use that because you've got me, you don't need it. It turns into kind of grid, which allows me to create a grid around the current perspective of that frame, of that layer. As soon as I click Enter, those handles will turn black. Black, I can now do this. And if I click Enter, it says it's always there. That's the perspective warp tool. Who needs me to do that again? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to go back in history. I'll go back to this point here. We've got the two layers, and this layer here I want to activate the, make sure I'm in the layer, the perspective warp tool. I'm going to click, hold, drag the grid to tell the software what the current perspective is. Now I'm going to click enter, turn those handles into black handles so that they're editable and I can do the changes. And then click enter again to finish it off. How do you go? All good? Good, I want to take some photos of you doing that. Does anyone need some help? Does anyone need any help at all? We all good? So does this to the perspective. That open. The whole thing. You close it. All right.
When we start.
Okay. I'm trying to remember, there was a little look for a second. Control D. Go Control D. Control. Okay, let's just. Oh, don't. Okay. So, run that layer and. Yeah. Trying to remember. Sometimes it's got to do with the card, and that, if it's not handling changes tools, so there'll be nothing you can do about it. All right, let's have a bit of fun with a world leader. Can we download this image here? Do you know this man? Very popular in Turkey at the moment and everywhere else. Open up the President of the United States into Photoshop. Now, once you've got the President opened up in Photoshop, go up to the filter drop-down menu. This filter here called Liquify. When you activate Liquify, by default it should go to the faces tool, and it picks up where there's any face. Multiple faces, and therefore it gives every face a different number. And you find that the faces in your shot is not smiling much. So you can have a look, smile, mouth, and maybe give the person more. Or if they're smiling too much, smile. So it's liquefying the photo and it's identifying certain features, and have a play with different features either through the sliding tools here or directly on the picture itself as it picks up the different points. Donald thinks he's putting it away at the moment, so I'm just going to give him slightly skinnier. Well, that's what I do with all my photos on my blog. Now the great jump up to this here called the forward walk. Depending on how big or small our cursor is, we really have a bit of fun with our Liquify tool. I think is it culture where it's actually rude to point? Is it this? Better? There we go. So it's not doing as much now. So next, you're not so happy with your husband or your wife, or your faculty, or your pro-chancellor. I was doing a workshop in Thailand, and I was the king of Thailand up there, and someone warned me and said, no, don't do that, because I wouldn't have got home, which wouldn't have been good. So that's the Liquify tool. It basically allows you to liquefy and then and have a bit of fun with your tool. You can imagine the students love it, and it's just a nice way of manipulating. When you click it brings that image. While I'm doing this, I just want to show you a few other filters. There's a lovely tool here when you go to filter called the filter gallery. And when you click on the filter gallery, you get a little preview of these filters. And then if you like what the filter is doing to your image, you can click OK, and that filter will stick with that. Okay, and I've applied that. You can see that and use it any way we do. Now we're about to a break in about 15 minutes, even less than that. It's only a 15-minute break, so we'll probably break a little bit earlier. Try to be back at 11:15. Just want to continue on with some of the theory behind how important creativity is. Who's ever heard of Sir Ken Robinson? Art design person would have, obviously. Sir Ken Robinson is the guru. He's the thought leader international thought leader when it comes to the world of creativity in education. Out of London, he's now based in Los Angeles, and he travels the world and he writes lots of books about the importance. Creativity now is as important in education as literacy. It's so important to be teaching creativity. Some of the research that of Scotland about the importance of creativity are creativity improves self-esteem, motivation, achievement of learners. Students who are creatively become more interested in discovering for themselves. Rather than in class waiting for the teacher to give them information, they'll go and find it for themselves because they've got a creative more open to new challenges. Able to solve problems, connect with others, become more effective, and have greater ownership of their own learning. Again, trying to get that mindset of waiting for the teacher to give them information, getting them to do it for themselves, owning their learning. And if you think about Bloom's taxonomy, back in 1956, Benjamin Bloom designed this pyramid of best way to teach and best way to learn, and the bottom of the pyramid is all about learning facts for an exam, learning facts and figures to pass a test. And for a lot of us in education, we stay down the bottom because that's how we get our results. But that's not necessarily effective learning. As we climb up the pyramid, the very top of the pyramid is creativity, really applying that learning in a creative process for life learning and to be ready for the next step when they finish courses. This is from Macquarie University in New South Wales, and she's the top creative philosophers around the world, and she had these definitions different. Activity. I love the definition. Just that are not certain to anything that you. This is Dr. Paul Turan. He's a world expert in creativity. Aspects of creativity include uniqueness, flexibility, collaboration, humor, closure. Just not really one things because that's the time we finish. The bell is about to go. Our assignment has to be due then, so I want to finish now. That's not creative. Creativity is being a lot more flexible. And sure, we have deadlines, we have to meet those, and that's fine. But one perspective about how important it is to be flexible, because when they do go to the workforce, yes, there are deadlines they have to meet as well, but be a much happier worker if they can incorporate the flexibility into it. Professor Sternberg says creativity is of new ideas, approaches, and actions. Creativity is the process of becoming sensitive to problems, deficiencies, gaps in knowledge, missing elements, and disharmonies. Creativity is a decision that anyone can make. He believes few people actually do make the decision to be creative because they find the cost to be too high. In other words, educators, academics, parents, children, and the broader community need to invest time and effort into the creative process. It's not an easy thing. It doesn't come naturally. Not at our age, anyway. Dr. Wade has established 5 different levels of creativity. For most of us, we stay here in the improvising and producing stage. And that's where most of the world will be. Improvising, just experimenting, being creative, maybe to the piano, thinking about something, going to Photoshop, just improvising. Producing is actually creating something. That's where we start to get to the innovative side. Inventing is when we've produced something and we've actually published it, we've actually created an invention. That's quite a high level of creativity that not many people get to. Innovation is the next level above that. And the highest level of creativity is the emerging level. Hardly anyone gets to that stage. That's where we get the Picassos and the top musicians in the world, where they're getting to that emerging stage. Elton John, classic example of someone who would be high level of creativity. He has the ability to music. Economic every 2 years, but every 5 years they run this survey about what are the most important skills to thrive in the future. I'm about to list you, according to the World Economic Forum, the top 5 skills. The 5th most important skill, coordinating with others. Have a think about every time you set an assignment, do you allow other people to work together in groups? Because that is so important. Let me keep encouraging that. I'm trying to encourage more schools to do that at a high level, like 11 and 12, even for formal assessments to get to university, to do that as a group work. It's very hard because our mentality is, no, we have to assess people individually. Group work is so important. People management, giving your students an opportunity to lead a group, even if they're not natural leaders. The 3rd most important skill, now this was 5 years ago in this case, is creativity. They predict that the next time they do this survey, it will be the number 1 skill. It's interesting how, because 10 years ago, it was the 10th most important skill, and it's really driven up the ranks. Thinking outside the square, thinking for yourself, as opposed to thinking based on what other people think. Rather than just listening to a teacher and accept everything that they say, go and find some other sources, back it up. Make sure you're checking the facts, doing fact checking all the time to make sure when you're actually producing something that it is original, that it is true to the point that most people agree that it's true. The final one is complex problem solving as a really important skill. Now think about everything that we've done over the last 2 days. Just about everything we've done covers most of those skills. And think about when you're teaching, when you're setting assignments, are you encouraging the development of all of those skills? Because that is so important. And that's a nice way to finish off, a little bit of thought leadership as we go to a break. It's now 5 minutes to 11. Have a break now at 11:15. We want to come back and we're going to be doing a little bit more work to finish off our time together. See you then. I'm giving prizes away at 11:15. Don't be late. Good.
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi. Tuan-tuan, peringatan check out sebelum 12.30. Nanti dia kena check out dekat bawah lah, dekat lobby dulu. Kalau kata ada yang nak check out sekarang, boleh check out ni, kita boleh letak beg dekat belakang dulu. Apa-apa pun sebelum 12.30. Parking kereta nanti, kad tu bila